It is Wednesday, my dudes, and you are watching The Sweat, presented by DraftKings. Jesse Cofield, Emerson Lancia, our long 12-hour national nightmare is over. The arson judge sweepstakes is over.
Yep.
I know.
We're going to talk winners and losers from this absolutely historic deal it is raining cash for this man.
Really is.
And 9 years, a lot of years. Impact it could have on the rest of free agency. Plus, the Gojo gang is going to join us.
Yeah.
We're going to talk over-unders in the NFL. That's in the association. That's all coming your way.
Okay, let's start, though, by putting this show on ice. A riveting RotoWire duo leading us off this morning. AJ Scholes, Paul Bruno. What's up, dudes? We need to dive into best bets ahead of tonight's 7-game NHL slate.
Yeah, AJ.
I was going to say, AJ, did you get a step and repeat banner? Is that a new banner behind you?
Just working in the office today. That's all.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Wow, look at you, professional.
We love
Not
to
being
see
lazy
it.
and a bum for once. Good
All right,
stuff.
in the office, give us your most professional take on who's a favorite that you're looking at on the puck line or money line, AJ.
Yeah, I think you got to be on Edmonton for the puck line tonight. It comes in at -115, so it's not a ton of value, but they should absolutely steamroll the Coyotes here. The Arizona is just so mismatched in this contest from the offensive pieces with McDavid and Draisaitl to the goaltending. Everything about this should be a high-scoring game in favor of Edmonton, and they should just cruise to an easy win here.
All right, Paul, where are you looking for this one?
I'm right with AJ. There's a lot of easy bets on the puck line today, and that one is the one that answers your question. But you can't overlook Buffalo over Columbus and Boston over Colorado, or the semblance of the Colorado roster that's going to show up. Those should be 3 easy wins on the puck line. Take all 3: Buffalo, Boston, and Edmonton tonight.
All right, boys. Next question for you. Which underdog would you consider backing tonight? Paul.
I'm going to Minnesota, +125 on the money line at Calgary. The Calgary goaltending situation a little bit murky now all of a sudden, and they're going to give Markstrom another chance to get himself righted. I don't know that he's quite ready to face a Minnesota team that's going to match Calgary physically, and that takes away Calgary's edge that they have against most other teams. So Minnesota comes in rolling, and they've got Kirill Kaprizov, who's going to be the best skater on the ice. So I like their firepower over the underperforming Flames offense in this one, so take Mini.
All right, AJ, Coyotes look like the biggest underdog here on the slate, baby. Let's go.
Not touching that one with a 10-foot pole, Emerson. I'm with Paul here on Minnesota. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They look really good. I'm honestly a little surprised to see them as the underdog here. If you want another game to target, I think the Rangers coming in at +130 value, going up against the Golden Knights. That's a really good New York team, and they should be able to pull one off in that contest as well.
All right, speaking of that Knights-Rangers game, maybe that's the game total that you're looking at for this one, AJ? Both these teams have been just bleeding goals.
Yeah, it's certainly an over to target, absolutely, in that one. As far as unders go, I actually like Boston, Colorado. There's just so many injuries for the Avalanche here. I don't know who's going to play where. They keep shuffling guys up and down to the minors, so their lines look all just a mess with the number of injuries, including Nathan McKinnon here. So I don't expect Colorado to produce much offensively. Boston has been getting some really good goaltending as well. So I think the under in that one is definitely in play.
All right, Paul, which game total are you looking at?
I'm looking at going over on a couple of games where the theme is similar, where the teams that are playing on offense are much better than their counterparts on the defensive side of the puck. Look at Vancouver and San Jose, 2 teams that are at the bottom of the standings when it comes to goals against, and Vancouver's situation got even worse with Thatcher Demko in the dumper right now. So Spencer Martin's having to play a lot of games, and I don't know how good he is yet. And Kakkonen is the backup in Minnesota, is going to get a shot tonight, it looks like. So shaky goaltending against good offense. I'll take the offense every time. And the same thing applies in Buffalo matchup at Columbus. The number is 6.5. Simply the quality of goaltending on either side, very poor. And both teams can light it up offensively. So take the over in those 2 games.
Hey, before you two take off, let's go over to the DFS side here real quick. Paul, how much money are you going to spend here on your favorite DFS play on DraftKings tonight?
Well, you know what? The Bruins should romp over Colorado,
Yeah.
as AJ implied, and you'd be silly not to stack that top line. The prices are a little lower than I thought they would otherwise be. So getting Bergeron at $6,500, Marchand $7,100, DeBrusque 63, put them all in there because they're all going to be on the score sheet. And then if you're looking for a defenseman that makes sense, Quinn Hughes at $5,600 is one of the high-end defensemen who should be a top performer tonight, playing over 25 minutes, and yet he's sixth most expensive on that list tonight. So some good value possibilities for players that should be priced a lot higher, I think.
All right, AJ, you like that strategy there with the bees, huh?
Yeah, I do think you have to consider targeting them as much as possible. But my favorite DFS play tonight is actually on the blue line. John Carlson comes in at 6,700. It's a bit of a hefty price tag there, but he's got 3 goals in his last 5 games, and perhaps most importantly, he's got 20 shots over that stretch as well, putting a ton of pucks on net here. He plays on that top power play unit for them. And so I think despite 6,700 being the price tag, I think he's a great value for what you'll get in terms of production.
All right, thank you guys. That's all the time we have for
Quick.
hockey this morning. Coming up, the 49ers have been considered a Super Bowl contender, a Super Bowl favorite, some people might even say. But can they get there now without Jimmy G?
No.
It may not be Purdy.
Oh, you did not!
But we're going to talk it out with the Gojo boys next.
All right, but first, check out DraftKings Director of Race and Sportsbook, Johnny Avello, on the Unreasonable Odds podcast, talking about a few NFL futures that could make for a merry holiday season. Ho, ho, ho.
It's week 14. We're really getting there. Are there any futures that you're starting to look at from the book side or the side of the bettors that are starting to kind of take form? So for example, Bears win total, the under was one of the most bet wins when I wrote up some of the most bet win totals just prior to week 1 on DraftKings Playbook. I think the Bears opened 7.5, got bet all the way down to a juiced 6.5 or 6. And the Bears pretty much need to win out for that one, not to win for the public. Are there any things that you're seeing start to take form on DK Sportsbook that you're like, wow, this is going to be a big win for the public or a big win for the house?
Well, some of these are already determined. The bettors played the Eagles over 8.5 and 9, so that one's a no doubter. The Jets have also cast. The Giants still need to win a game. Raiders need to win 4 of the last 5 to get over that 8.5.
Nope.
There are just so many others that can go either way with 5 games remaining. In the futures market, though, the Bengals and the Cowboys were both popular, but the Niners, who were taking money each week, they were raised even though they won because of Jimmy G. You know what, guys? That's a really interesting strange movement all year. The Niners, they were lowered when they lost their starting quarterback. You remember that? And who gets lowered when they lose their starting quarterback? And then they were raised after winning a game this week. So it's all about Jimmy G. He dictates what that team's chances are.
And then looking ahead to this upcoming week, which games have taken the most money or seen the most movement in the early goings here?
They like the Lions again. We opened Minnesota the favorite. Now the Lions are the 2.5-point choice. The early play has been the Eagles at the Giants up from 6 up to 7. They also like the Dolphins on the road over the struggling Chargers, and the Bucs at the Niners getting over a field goal.
Check out the Gojo Show every weekday. You can hear former Notre Dame teammates Mike Golick Jr. and Brandon Newman. They give their unique perspective. They talk hot topics, not just in sports, right? They talk pop culture, and you can grab that show wherever you get your podcasts. Spotify, Apple, Google Podcasts, the iHeartRadio app, and more. Whenever we say "and more," like I don't know where else you could get the podcast.
It's YouTube. We banged this out back in like week 3. YouTube or here on Wednesdays.
Here on the Sweat right now.
Yeah, look at these dudes. A couple dudes being guys. Yeah, great to have you guys here, man.
Yeah,
Great
guys,
to be here.
We love having you here. Another week, another injury for San Francisco. Am I
This
right?
is
Wow.
wild. No, you are right.
Jimmy G likely done for the season. Reports say he could possibly return in January, but like question.
Yeah,
mark,
I think it would be
question
like the divisional round if they even get there.
mark. Sure. So now Brock Purdy, is now the quarterback here. Are they still a Super Bowl contender, Mike?
No, I think right now with Brock Purdy at the helm, they probably fall short of true Super Bowl contender status. That defense still has claim to being the best in the NFL, and we saw that on full display with what they did to that Dolphins offense. But I think at some point in the postseason, having a young quarterback, even in the friendliest quarterback offense maybe in the NFL, is going to come back to haunt them. And so while Jimmy G's playoff performance has not always been great, that notion that they could get him back as a boost, even if it is as late as the divisional round, I think their defense could potentially get them that far in this year's NFC, and then it's going to be about whatever voodoo magic Kyle Shanahan can dial up.
Yeah. What do we think, Mike? Do you agree? Or Brandon? I just asked Mike, so Brandon, you're next.
Oh, I would actually like to hear from Mike again.
No.
Yes, I think that Mike is forgetting about the Nick Foles Eagles Super Bowl win. Like, I think a complete football team can make it. I think Brock Purdy is just that for right now. Fred Warner has sang his praises, so that's all I really need to hear from the 49ers and how they feel about their backup. They just signed Josh Johnson. He's the most signed quarterback of the most teams. He's been on the most teams out of anyone in NFL history. But the focus is on that defense. The focus is on that special teams. I think they're fine. Kyle Shanahan, I'm starting to believe in him in that play calling thing. It's not just Jimmy G falling apart in the playoffs. I think he's kind of fell apart a little bit in the playoffs as well. So he's got to correct some things too, so they can make it to the Super Bowl.
I do like this notion, by the way, that Fred Warner would say anything else about his quarterback and teammate here. Like, he'd come out with the Shaq, like, I'm sorry, brother, I was not familiar with your game. I got to be honest.
Well, I think a lot of us are familiar with Baker Mayfield's game right now. And everyone was like, oh, San Francisco's definitely going to go out and grab Baker now. And, like, Baker can revive his career. And then, no, I think the Rams pulled this move. They're like, we're going to claim this dude off waivers, so you can't. So, Mike, Matthew Stafford is on IR now. Like, how do you think Baker fits in LA?
Badly, because everything about LA is not going well right now. Like, there's no chance for him to be successful here. We've seen Baker Mayfield is not going to be a quarterback to come and elevate you beyond your means. And this is just a Rams team right now that doesn't have a lot of means. They deserve a ton of credit for the way that they battled in that divisional game against the Seahawks this past weekend. You saw the passion. Bobby Wagner and Jalen Ramsey were on the sideline doing everything they could to rally what's left of this team. The problem is they're looking around right now trying to figure out who the hell their teammates are more often than not, because Aaron Donald's off the field, because Cooper Kupp is off the field, because most of their offensive line's been off the field for the entirety of this season. And so looking around at what they've got right now on offense, this is not a situation where Baker Mayfield could or should have success. He's brought in there because he's a competent NFL starter at times in his career when he's been healthy. And right now, they've been bouncing back and forth between guys that are going to be backup quarterbacks for their career in this league. And so the Rams are making the move that was on the table for them to make, but I don't think anyone involved is really going to see a huge benefit from this marriage.
All right, so he's not reviving his career is what you're telling me, Mike.
No, probably not. Probably not going to be the case here.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
No, Brandon.
Well, or he can start his career as a career backup. I think that can be said. And he's getting close to Hollywood. We all know he's great in commercials. I don't know what he feels about CBD or THC, but I think there's a lot of opportunities for him to make some money out there.
Yeah, so like this could actually be a positive for the team, or more likely it sounds like to you, Brandon, it's going to be more of a positive for Baker.
Listen,
it's a positive. It's a positive for Baker. Baker finally, the closest he's been to a Super Bowl ring. He gets his chance to smell them and see them, and I'm sure he's going to win one as a backup eventually.
And Brandon's right. That Hollywood thing is real. This is the best acting quarterback in the NFL. Someone out here needs to do the right thing and get him into a commercial.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
I mean, he's still in like every other commercial, which I'll take any. I actually will take any Baker commercial over the Stafford. If I got to hear Stafford say "pizza, pizza" one more time on my TV on Sundays or on Thursday night football,
you're gonna have to. You are gonna have to.
Yeah. Okay, it's true. I'm not gonna do anything about it.
All right, let's talk college football now. Playoffs finalized. We're gonna see Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU in the semis. Like, Mike, this was just like a wild conference championship weekend. TCU and USC both lose. Yeah. Horned Frogs, Buckeyes, 5th and 6th teams to make the college football playoff without winning a conference title.
Should have put Bama in there, man.
Did the selection committee get it right?
Yes, they did, which the selection committee always does. We mistake all of the consternation that comes with these playoff rankings releases that start in October and November for actual drama at the end. The football bails the committee out every time. This was the only move to make. I like to think the college football playoff itself was paying homage to the current World Cup by having teams lose their last game in the group stage but still advance to the knockout stage the way that Ohio State and TCU were both able to do. But yes, this was the only right choice. I appreciate so deeply in my soul Nick Saban being so shameless, being willing to go out here and campaign for his team on this big platform because he knows he's got influence and he knows that people love Bama and he knows that he is right that his team would be favored on a neutral field with so many of the teams involved in this field. But that doesn't matter. They lost 2 games, as did Tennessee. Bama probably shouldn't have even been ranked over Tennessee, who beat them and the other team that beat Alabama. This is the right Final Four. And this will be a very interesting college football playoff now because of it, especially with Ohio State at the 4 seed going up against Georgia in round 1.
Yeah, Brandon, Saban on the Fox halftime of the Big Ten Championship saying, if we played any of those teams that are on the edge of getting in, would we be the underdogs or the favorite? Question mark. Just straight lobbying for his boys.
Give me Bama. Give it to me.
Why is he so messy? Why does Nick Saban have to put himself squarely into things that no one's even considering him? Obviously, they have him there because he has insights and he's going to say something that's going to rile people up. This is what he said. And I was wondering if they were going to just go ahead and force Alabama in because obviously they could, like we're talking about here. But I want to see South Carolina in that spot. I'm upset that we have to see such a force in our bowl game when we don't even have a quarterback. I'm sorry, Drew Pine, Notre Dame. I don't know if people understand. We don't have a quarterback right now. We have to play them in a bowl game. And South Carolina, I think, is one of the best teams in the SEC.
Huh?
Who the hell's going to play quarterback for Notre Dame in the Gator Bowl?
Probably. I think their original quarterback, Tyler Buckner, has been back practicing right now. They've got a freshman that's in the mix as well. You know what? Bowl season is going to be a great time this year with the transfer portal, as wild as it is. You're not going to really know who's starting for your team until we get to that point in the game. It's going to be like the spring football game where you're getting to know your team for next year. This should actually count as a win towards next season and not a win towards this season.
Yeah. Speaking of a guy who's hot on the transfer portal.
What? Oh, yes.
Deion Sanders being like, I
thought you were looking at me. I'm like, I mean, dude, my days are behind
me. I was
me.
trying to give you a nice segue.
No, that's true. You can't team me up with something that easy.
Into teeing you up, and you're
it
just
is no, it is true, Mike. So like Jesse and I were sitting here the other day. We're watching this video with Deion Sanders. We're talking about Deion Sanders. He's being so brutally honest now that he's taken over at Colorado.
And 3 of us here played a D1 sport.
True. I was club rugby. I was club rugby.
We all played a D1
That's
sport.
where this
Can you
scar
imagine
comes
if your
from.
new coach came in and was just like, get out of here. Just please leave.
I can believe it because I think this gets said behind closed doors in some way, shape, or form a lot more than we probably give it credit for. And I think with Deion Sanders, the difference is everything is the show. Everything is the sell. Everything is pro wrestling with Deion Sanders. Did some of it not feel great to hear? Absolutely. Hearing, these young players who have already been through a tough season get talked to like that. But there is also part of me as a former player that appreciates a coach that at least is going to be honest with me. If I don't like the way it feels, if I don't like the way it sounds, I at least know where I stand. And now we sit in a day and age where with that transfer portal, these players have a choice. These players have the ability to go out here and get to a different place, get to a different future, get to a circumstance that can actually help them if this isn't the one. And so I understand the abrasion to that. I think this is also what we've got to get ready for. Deion Sanders is a lot more like every other college football coach than we give him credit for. Yeah. Sounds bigger, feels brighter, but ultimately is doing and saying a lot of the same things we see done everywhere, even as he's proclaimed to be different along the ways at certain spots. And so that's what makes this interesting about Colorado is he's got to oversell this, because we heard in the press conference from their AD, they don't even have the money to pay him right now, let alone to think about the resources it might take to actually make Colorado successful as a program. And so it's going to require Deion Sanders sending up the bat signal in the transfer portal and saying, we're open for business.
Yeah, Brandon, because of the transfer portal, I do believe he can turn things around at Colorado sooner than maybe like in years past. He was tremendous at Jackson State. What can we expect from the Sanders era in Boulder?
I have no clue, but I'm very interested. Yeah. I am following along because they interviewed his son and said he wins because he has the best players. I don't know if he's going to be able to transfer pool, have the best players in the Pac-12 next year. Not with Utah sitting right there, not with the rest of the competitive teams in the Pac-12. I mean, Colorado's bad on purpose. Is Deion Sanders a program builder? We don't know that yet. I'm excited to see if that's the case here, but I do think that he's on the right track by being honest with his teammates or with his players. Because you can lose a whole year from a head coach. Like, oh, yeah, you're definitely going to get a chance to play. You're definitely going to get a chance to start. It's like, no, the transfer portal is dangerous because there's a lot of optimism, like, ooh, what can be out there? But the reality hits you real fast when you don't have anyone calling. I mean, there's I think, when Brian Kelly came and changed our lives, I thought because I got a scholarship offer from Brian Kelly at Cincinnati that he was going to like me at Notre Dame. Not the case.
Yeah, Mike, did Brian Kelly come in? Because what, you had Charlie Weiss for a couple of years. We talked before you guys came on here for this segment, and then Brian Kelly comes in. Like, did he have just like this kick-ass message to you kids and be like, hey, like time to suck it up or get the hell out?
I think it was less blunt than that, but it's always a hard reset, right? Because we are going to do things a very different way. And for someone like, in that case, Brian Kelly, and here, Deion Sanders. Deion's been a head coach now, so he knows to some extent how he wants things done. He knows the way that he wants meetings and practice organized. He knows the way that he wants training table and the offseason programs to work. And those were all the things when Brian Kelly came in were going to be different than what we had done before. And it's not a better or worse scenario, but it's, hey, they've got their own way of doing things. And buy-in is the thing that we hear all the time, which is you've got to show this new staff, even if it doesn't feel great at first, if your goal is to stick around and play, you've got to show this new staff you're willing to be coachable, you're willing to go out here and execute the things that they want laid out. And that transition can be uncomfortable. It's designed to be uncomfortable because it's supposed to be setting a new foundation. And that means you usually got to break up the old one.
All right, Gojo Rose time.
Yeah.
People. Mike, person, place, thing. What gets your rose this week?
MLB insider John Heyman for giving us the meme of MLB free agency. Congratulations to Arson Judge signing for $1 billion with the Yankees after John Heyman originally reported that the San Francisco Giants had appeared to be circling in on what he mistyped as Arson Judge, which spawned a whole day of fire-related memes on God's internet. It was the perfect bit of Scoops goofing that went on, and I'm just so appreciative that in the middle of watching this large young man get life-changing sums of money, we also got to have fun online because Twitter still exists, even though we had its funeral 2 weeks ago.
Bro, he got Arson Judge wrong, and then he got Aaron Judge wrong. He didn't end up going to the Giants at all, damn it.
Yeah, you do hate to see it, but it...
Oh, I love it. It's why we love Twitter.
We love to have fun. It created a lot of memes on the internet, and what more can you ask for? Brandon, Gojo Rose goes to?
You okay?
I think I gotta give it to Andrew Luck. I give Paul's not taking a serious rose. That's what that pause was. But Andrew Luck coming out there and giving us, as former D1 athletes, Emerson, you can just listen to this.
Chill out.
It was good to hear how hard it was for him to give it up after he had all that success in the Indianapolis Colts, and we've been waiting to hear where he was thinking, and it's troubling to hear how hard it was for him, but it's good to hear his honesty because I think a lot of people felt seen hearing his story.
Yep. For sure. Again,
Look, this is
huge.
what happens. This is what happens when a serious rose happens. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Look, this is-
I can say Emerson's used to Brandon coming up here
Yeah.
and being like, "Look at this, who this celebrity cheated with that I'm gonna reward with a rose," or "This is what players' marriage is
I know.
falling apart
Oh,
that I can
okay.
celebrate."
I
all
hate-
right, all right. I'll give my rose to T.J. Holmes then. You know, Good Morning America 3.
Oh my
Yes.
God, no!
Yes.
There he is, and he,
We flew
hey,
too close to the sun. We did it. We pushed him to this.
hey,
No,
hey.
I'm here for it. Are you kidding me?
They had us in the first
is
half. Had us in the
co-anchor.
first half.
I think it's hysterical. And like apparently they told Bob Iger about it, and he was like, "Well, let's just kind of see what happens."
And that's
left
what
them
they've
on air
done.
together.
Dude.
And then like
Hey.
that news came out, and they were like, "Oh, just kidding. We're gonna pull them from the air." Like wink, wink.
Yeah.
Hey, good luck to them in their half marathon. I know one's a pacer and the other one's a
Yeah.
Oh,
Did you
Bro.
see that, Brandon? Did you see that
Yeah.
little clip of them talking about it?
Loved it.
Yeah.
Dude, they
So
were
nasty, so nasty.
like a
So
TikTok couple. Like, how did we not see through that?
No, I mean you play the videos back, and you're just like,
If you listen to the words that they say,
Yeah.
and not hear that, like if you just transcribe the things that they're saying,
Yeah.
it's nasty.
it was like, and then the
Yeah.
news came out, and we were like, well, they were just trolling us during this. So.
Right.
Anywho, yeah, man, what a time to be alive, huh? Okay, guys, that's it. We'll see you later. Hopefully, we see each other. We're hanging out at the Gator Bowl there. Go Irish! But coming up next, after a tough loss in San Francisco, can Tua and the Dolphins actually put up some points here, people? Like what's expected to be a shootout with the Chargers, right? I don't know. We're gonna bring in our football panel for some NFL over/under chatter next.
All
right.
right. Welcome
We're
back to the Sweat.
Sweat.
Jesse Cofield alongside Emerson Latzia. We have DraftKings contributors Jeff Ulrich, Pierce Dietrich, and Julian Edlow here for NFL over-under. So we're talking week 14 games. You're going to let us know if they're going over or under their projected totals.
Yep.
So what are the highest totals on the board right now? 53.5 points projected between the Vikings and Lions. Both teams have managed to put up points this year.
Yeah.
And also, neither of them have a very good defense, okay? So they're putting up points and they're giving up points.
Wow. That's
So are we expecting an over here, Jeff?
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah!
3.5 points.
Hey, it's 52 and a half now, by the way.
Woo!
Well, even better. Look, just like last week, with the when the Lions match up against the Jaguars, the worst units on the field this week are going to be the defenses. And I mean, really, nothing's changed. You look at Detroit; they've really been moving the ball well with Amon-Ra St. Brown. They move him all over the formation. Not going to be able to shadow him with Patrick Peterson. Not sure it would matter at this point, anyways. Jared Goff's playing well. The other side of the ball. I mean, look, Jacksonville put up some garbage time points, but this isn't Jacksonville. This is a much more competent offense with Justin Jefferson. Dalvin Cook going to be able to run through some holes here. Both these teams, top 12 in terms of pace of play as well. Like the over here, glad it's coming down already. I'll ride with the public and say this one probably goes 54 points or more.
Pierce, you riding with the public? Think this goes over?
Yeah, I'll ride with public. This is the game of the week. Imagine that Lions-Vikings game of the week, especially in DFS. But aside from DFS, it's going to be a fun game for everybody to watch. I've been saying this for weeks. If you take out the Lions, 2 losses to some very good defenses in New England and also to Dallas, then you've got a Philly or a Detroit team that's averaging the most points per game. And on the other side of the ball, their defense allows the most points per game. That puts them in track meets every week. And then Minnesota has no problem scoring there. A top 5 offense if you throw out 2 of their worst games. And I know you can't just throw out games, but we're throwing out tough matchups. When Minnesota couldn't score against Dallas, when Minnesota couldn't score against Philly, those are tough defenses. Against, bad defenses, they score points, and they have a top 5 offense. And just like the Lions, their defense allows a ton of points. You look at the last 3 games, and the Vikings are allowing 29 points per game. I expect a lot of fireworks, but I will also add this is the Detroit Lions, so let's not just start counting our cash too soon. They do have a history of letting us down.
Yeah, they do. That's fair enough. Julian, you maybe want to be the lone under here, or are you also going over?
Yeah, Jules.
Division unders are very sharp this late in the year. And I was going to say, if you're betting the over here, you might want to wait because it's going to come down. Well, perfect. It did it for us on the show, down from 53.5 to 52.5. Kind of like all that sharp money piling on Detroit, bringing them from dogs to favorites in this game. I thought for a second that Pierce was going to make the case like he did last year, that like the 3-win Lions were a 500 team. I thought now he was going to make the case. Now they are like a 500 team, but that they were like going to be like Super Bowl champions or something. They had, one different play in a couple different games. He didn't quite go there, but the Lions are a decent team, and that's why they're favored in this game against a 10-2 Vikings team. It's indoors. Both offenses like playing indoors. Both defenses are poor. We just saw Detroit put up 40 at home last week against a Jags team that's been an under team most of the season. I think that both offenses are going to be very comfortable. So while the division unders are very sharp this late in the season, if there's one I'm going to push back on, it's this. It's going to be over or pass for me.
Pierce, a half point under that, 52 points here for the Dolphins and the Chargers. So Dolphins are staying out there on the West Coast. They were held to just 17 points against San Francisco, but that defense is totally different than what they'll go up against here against LA. Should we be expecting a shootout in this one? Is this an over or an under for you?
Let's go with another shootout, another game of the week on Sunday night. We're going over, and since I guess I have the habit of throwing out games and disregarding certain plays here and there, I think, and I don't think this is much of a stretch, if you're looking at the Dolphins and you're looking at last week and then trying to project or predict what they're going to do this week, you really should throw out that San Francisco game. Yeah, it was a loss. It was a bad loss. They were missing 2 offensive linemen, and San Francisco has the best defensive football. It matters, but I would rather look at the whole season, and you'll see that the Dolphins have a top 10 offense, and they've had a top 10 offense in scoring despite missing their starting quarterback for several games and missing linemen here or there. So I think they're a little bit better than just a top 10 offense. Same thing with the Chargers. They rank just 14th in offensive scoring, but they also have dealt with a lot of injuries throughout the season. I think this is definitely an explosive offense for the Chargers. And then you look at the other side of the ball, both of these defenses, I think 25th and 30th when we're talking about points allowed per game. So you have 2 very competent, if not elite offenses face, at least when they're healthy, facing 2 defenses that are just not very good. I expect plenty of points and an over on Sunday night.
All right, Jules, you expect the Chargers to go blow for blow here with Miami?
It's a primetime game. It's a high total. I really want to go under here, but you look at some of the numbers, like Miami's offense has been going on the road. They're 5-1 to the over away. The Chargers, their offense has been struggling. They're just 2-4-1 to the over away, but they're 3-2 at home. So the numbers tell us that both of these offenses should be in good spots to score. And then Pierce went over the rest of it there. Gut call, like I feel like this is too many. I feel like Miami's defense shows up a little bit on the road here in a primetime game. So I don't really have as good of a reason. I'll say the last games head to head between these teams, if you go back 10, they're 8-2 to the under. I get that, it's Tua versus Herbert, 2 guys top 10, same draft class, 1 pick apart. They can put up some points. I think in a primetime game here, in a game that matters in the AFC, I'm leaning under. The number just feels too high to me.
Jeff, which way are you leaning? Over or under 52 points here?
I like the under in this one. A little bit more competent defenses on both sides. You look at what these offenses have done over the last 2 weeks. I mean, the Chargers needed a late touchdown just to get to 20 points against Vegas. Miami did nothing against San Francisco. And I know it's San Francisco. The Chargers aren't quite as stout a defense, but they do have D-line pressure. There were still some O-line issues for Miami last week. Miami hasn't really been running the ball, which has kind of been the weakness of the Chargers defense anyways. So, the Chargers play quick, but again, one thing that people always seem to just, not remember against Miami, they really don't play at that fast a pace. They're below average in terms of neutral situation pace of play. And if they get out to a lead here, like they're gonna deflate the ball a little bit just in terms of the pace of the game. So I think that the under in this one's a better bet. It's a primetime matchup. All the money's come. All the public is on the over, obviously. Two premier quarterbacks, but I think the under is definitely the play in this game.
All right, let's talk Chiefs, right?
They're great.
Obviously, one of the league's most high-powered offenses. We all know that. They head to Denver in Week 14 to take on a Broncos team that's offense is not high-powered, to say the least.
No, that's Jeff's team.
To say the least. The total here is 43.5. Can Denver hold up their end of the bargain to help get us an over here, Jules? 8 straight games for the Broncos have gone under.
Oh, my God.
No, they can't.
Yeah.
We're talking about a team that averages 14 points per game, and they're not playing in like the 1950s with a wishbone offense. They just paid $1 billion to a franchise quarterback to come and save them. They can't score. They average 14 points per game. They're 1-11 to the over. How can you possibly argue a Broncos over right now? I know Patrick Mahomes is the reason that you would consider it, but again, it's a late season division game on the road, outdoors in Denver. What are the Chiefs going to have to do here? They can win this game 21-10 probably if they want to. Like there's just a million ways that you can see this game going under before you see it turning into a shootout between these two teams. So I'm curious to see if either of these guys want to make the case for the over. I don't think you can make the case for a Denver Broncos over until we see it happen.
Jeff, can you do it? This total was 43 yesterday. It's creeped up half a point.
Wow.
I mean, first of all, yeah, hell yeah, the Broncos are my team. They covered for me last week. Come on. I mean, I told Emerson they were going to cover, and they did. But no, why is this total at 43.5? Like, what? Of course we're going under this. What is going on? I'm shocked this number is still at this. I think that by game time, this has to get down 1.5 points or something like that. I mean, the Broncos they don't execute at all. We went over the division matchup, scenarios as well. The Chiefs are running the ball a little bit with Isaiah Pacheco. And look, like you don't, as bad as the Denver offense is, their defense is really good. They've allowed one team this year to score more than 23 points against them. Like, this is a tough matchup for the Chiefs side of the ball as well. Let's not forget, they don't have that Tyreek Hill nuclear weapon anymore, which they've kind of used like really, really solidly against Denver in the past. You look at these two teams over the last 3 years, 4-2 to the under in games. They've had a couple shootouts, but there's been a lot of like 22-10 games as well. So yeah, I do not understand the total or why this opened like this. I guess there's just so much respect given to Patrick Mahomes right now, but I think this is just hammer the under. I think this has to move by game time.
Here's 3 for 3 on the under here.
Oh, of course. The Broncos, as Jeff mentioned and Julian mentioned, their offense is terrible. It's been terrible for, I don't know, how many quarterbacks have they gone through? I know Peyton Manning had a couple good seasons before his neck gave out, but this franchise is cursed. I'd argue that Jake Plummer is probably the best quarterback over the last 20 years, and that's not saying much. Things are not getting any better, and I just don't see where the points are going to come from. As Jeff mentioned, the defense is really good. You can just look at previous matchups with the Chiefs as well. Aside from the current trend of unders. Now, I think you need to throw out last year's Week 18 matchup. That was the last game of the season, so I'm not going to look at that. But you look at the 3 games before that, 22-9 Kansas City, 23-3 Kansas City, 30-6 Kansas City. I think every single one of those scores over the last 3 games, Kansas City versus Denver, are very similar outcomes, where we get maybe 6 points from Denver and like 25, 24, whatever from Kansas City. And this thing's definitely going to stay under.
Man, all that money, too, that Russ is making, kind of ridiculous, but it's not as much money as Aaron Judge will be earning with the Yankees next year. So the saga is over. What needs to happen in order for this deal to be considered a success for New York? We will talk to our baseball panel right after this.
Welcome back to The Sweat. We are joined now by our MLB panel. DraftKings contributors Gary and Thorne and Julian Edlow. Our nightmare, our arson judge nightmare is over.
Yeah!
Yeah. After a lot of false information being reported.
What?
Not by you.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thornton. We now finally know Aaron Judge is signing a 9-year, $360 million contract to remain with the New York Yankees.
Yes. So, Jules, Aaron Judge is going to be getting paid the most money per year for any position player in baseball history. Is he worth it?
I mean, probably not. He might be right away, but this is the thing about baseball. Like, if, you know, the Giants or the Padres can say like, oh, I'm so glad we didn't give him that contract. There's no salary cap. It's the owner's money. Like, you want those guys on your team for the production that they're going to give you now. Is Aaron Judge going to be worth $40 million a year in his late 30s? Probably not. You know, we've seen him often injured throughout his career, and he just had like a historic season. How is he going to keep that up for, you know, even a couple years of this contract when he's getting paid, like you said, the highest amount of all time? That's just how baseball works. It's how sports work. You know, somebody else is going to get the record-breaking contract next year or the year after. So no, he's not going to be worth it. But did the Yankees have to do this? Absolutely. What would it look like if the Yankees let Aaron Judge walk away after 62 home runs because they couldn't afford him, or you know, the best hitter in baseball wants to go somewhere else and not be a New York Yankee? So the Yankees didn't really have a choice other than to bring Judge back. But he's just technically probably not going to be worth the dollar amount of his contract.
Our friend Jared Krabis said on Twitter, just so we're all understanding this, all the Yankees have done is retain the same players that got dusted by the Astros.
True, which I'm glad you brought that up.
Food for thought.
Garion, so what needs to happen in order for this deal to be considered a success here? Like, win multiple World Series, one World Series, multiple World Series? Yeah, getting past the Astros first? Like, you tell me, dude.
Look, I'm not a Yankees fan. I can't really necessarily put myself in their insane headspace. But I would assume, yeah, we're talking multiple World Series titles. I mean, look, the Yankees have not had a losing record in the regular season for, I believe, 31 consecutive seasons. So the bar of achievement on a team level is really, really high. This is a fan base that gets impatient quickly. And I think Judge is sort of a very easy microcosm of what we're talking about with that. I mean, this is someone who, as we mentioned, set the American League record for home runs last season with 62, led in virtually every single offensive category, and yet was being booed in like game 3 of the American League Division Series against the Guardians because he'd struck out a couple times.
I mean, he sucked in the postseason.
Yeah.
Sure. Postseason's a very small sample. And you're facing the best pitchers in the world. Look, I'm not saying you're not allowed to boo guys. I'm just saying the expectations are incredibly high in New York. He just had probably the best offensive season a player could have. Almost won the Triple Crown. Like, I don't think there's more he can achieve on an individual level at this point. So, yeah, I guess the only way to say this contract worked out is if the Yankees do, in fact, end up winning a couple World Series. But Judge can't control that. I mean, baseball is the least influenced sport by a single player when it comes to team outcomes. So all he can do is continue to be one of the 5 best hitters in baseball, which he has been the last half decade. I think it's fine. I think the Yankees had to do this. I think virtually any player you're giving a massive contract to in his early 30s, especially if it's his first big contract. Like, we're going to hit a wave of players in the next couple years that are hitting free agency for the first time and will still be able to hit free agency another time because the aging window in baseball has changed so dramatically. You've got guys coming in at age 20, age 21 and starting that clock. That was not the case with Judge. This is the one big contract he was going to get. You're going to have to overpay these guys. It's going to look bad in 2029, but you don't really worry about that at this point. You just got to go out there and hopefully, if you're a Yankees fan or a Yankees player, win a couple World Series.
Yeah. All right, dudes. That's all the time we have. I will say I'll give him a ton of credit for betting on himself because by doing so and having that kind of season, he made himself more or around $150 million more than his original contract offer from New York at the beginning of last season. I mean, it was an awesome job on his part.
Cashman made that public.
You can buy some stuff with $150.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say it was $150. I wasn't wrong. It's $150 more.
Many $150.
Yeah, 150, add a couple zeros, buddy. All right.
For sure. All right, let's talk some NBA best bets to wrap up the show right after this quick break. $150. Welcome us back. Welcome back, everybody, to our final block of the show. It's our NBA best bet segment. Jules is back. Oh no, Jules is not. Gary and Thorne's here.
Gary and Thorne's Nations, Chinmay Vaidya, RotoWires, and Nick Whalen. We're getting your favorite bets. We got an 11-game slate coming our way this evening. So, real quick, Whalen, like any injury news we should have our eye on as we get closer to tip-off tonight?
You know, I'm glad you asked, Jesse. There is a ton of injury news. I'll try to run through the main ones quickly. No Curry, no Draymond, no Wiggins for the Golden State Warriors. We just received word in the last 20 minutes or so that Chris Paul is expected to play for the first time in exactly a month tonight. Malcolm Brogdon also expected back in that game for the Boston Celtics. We're monitoring Anthony Davis as well. He left last night's game with an illness. And then Tyrese Halliburton, Miles Turner, we'll be keeping an eye on their statuses. Both of those guys currently questionable for the Pacers tonight.
Okay, so like maybe, Gary, of those key injuries there, any of those games in particular that you might be targeting?
I mean, I just think at this point, probably the one that we know the least about, and therefore the one you have to track the most, is just Anthony Davis. I have my doubts that someone who had 101-degree fever could only play 8 minutes and is now on a back-to-back in another country will probably be playing tonight, considering Anthony Davis's, I mean, this isn't an injury, but just considering his sort of history and how the Lakers have tended to be pretty careful with him. I'd be surprised if he plays, but I think Davis is probably the big one right now, especially considering just how massive his production has been in the last couple of weeks.
All right, Chinmay, anything to add there?
Yeah, I mean, going on the Lakers' point, they're 9-point underdogs right now on the DK Sportsbook, so you got to think that there's a lot of question marks surrounding Anthony Davis. And even LeBron James, LeBron is dealing with an ankle injury, and this is probably the first back-to-back that he's going to face with that injury. He had the groin issue before and played through some back-to-backs, but we'll see what LeBron does as well with the ankle on his first back-to-back. So both the Lakers stars actually worth monitoring here. Davis, obviously, we know much less about, and the only positive I'll say is that it's not a physical ailment. He doesn't have a broken bone or a pulled muscle. It's an illness, something that you can recover from a little bit quicker.
All right, Gare Bear, 11 games on the board. Who's a team that you believe may be a little disrespected here when you're looking at their spread?
It's not really disrespect because they're actually one of the largest favorites on the slate, but I just think that Pelicans' number should be higher.
Okay.
Pistons, second night of a back-to-back. Pelicans really do have the rest advantage tonight. They've been fantastic so far this season, especially at home. They're top 5 in the NBA in net rating and defensive rating when getting to play in New Orleans. They're 8-3 against the spread overall in their last 11 games. They've been one of the best teams against the number as a favorite so far this season. Pistons showed up last night. I had some money on the Pistons. It was great. Just betting on the Heat to have a long injury report, but this is not the same game. This is a much better Pelicans team, and I think they take care of business tonight.
Chinmay, any of these spreads just a head scratcher to you for whatever reason?
Yeah, the Pacers are 5-point underdogs right now to the Timberwolves. And the Pacers have played much better over the past week. The Timberwolves have had some unexpected losses. They lost to the Thunder. They lost to the Hornets by 2. Minnesota is out of sorts right now. There's tension with Rudy Gobert. D'Angelo Russell got ejected, I believe. I think like 4 Timberwolves players have gotten ejected in the past week in games. So I don't know what's going on there in Minnesota. This Pacers team has been playing hard. They're playing, together and playing much better than expected. I think it'll be a close game, but 5 points just seems like a lot. I think the Pacers should actually be favored in that one. And then the Wizards, I know Bradley Beal isn't playing, but the Bulls have been terrible this year. So I don't know why the Wizards are a 5-point underdog there as well.
Okay, Nick, what about you, man?
Yeah, Jimmy and Gary had covered most of the games I was going to hit on. So I'll just add real quickly that I like Washington. I think that's the answer for me. 5-point dogs against Chicago. Again, no Bradley Beal. I understand that, but the Wizards are 4-2 straight up without Bradley Beal this season. They beat Chicago already once this year back in the second game of the season. I just don't trust this Bulls team. I think it's a team that just kind of knows where it sits in the Eastern Conference and really has no upward mobility. And like Chinmay said, Washington's been the better team for the bulk of this season, and not having Bradley Beal, he's not having quite the singular impact that he did a couple years ago when he was a 30-point per game player.
So Nick, is Washington the dog that you think is a good bet tonight?
I do like that one, but as Chinmay mentioned, I really like Indiana if Tyrese Halliburton and Miles Turner play in this game. I think that's the reason that the Pacers are currently 4.5-point dogs. I think if we get news that even one of those guys plays, that'll move the line. If both play, I think it could go down, maybe 2 points. Indiana's 14-10 against the spread on the year. Minnesota is just 8-15. ATS, they're just 3-7 against the spread. As a home favorite, they have not been good in these situations where you have a inferior team on paper coming into Minneapolis. They have not been able to take care of business in those situations. Like Chinmay said, just a dysfunctional team. We really don't know what this team's going to look like long term with Karl Anthony Towns out. Guys have been getting ejected. Guys have been hurt. So I don't really like what's going on in Minnesota.
Chinmay, which dog you rolling with?
So the big one is we're waiting on the injury news. Obviously, the Lakers are 9-point underdogs, so it seems like at least one of LeBron and AD won't be suiting up in that one. But I'll still take that number. That seems like a big one. If one of those guys plays, I think the Lakers keep it close. The Warriors 7.5-point dogs against the Jazz. The Jazz have really been stumbling, and even with the injuries that Nick mentioned off the top, I still think Jordan Poole, Klay Thompson, the Warriors bench, they can get it together and have a close game. And then even the Kings have been flying this season offensively. I think they keep this one close against the Bucks. I think it's a 7-point spread right now. I don't know if they'll win, but I think they'll at least keep this one close.
Garion, take us home with your underdog pick.
Yeah, I'll talk about a game we haven't touched on yet. I think these guys have done a pretty good job of covering most of the slate so far. I like the Hawks on the money line tonight against the Knicks. I just think in general, the Hawks are a better team than the Knicks. I know both teams are struggling right now, but when you look at the Knicks and specifically isolate how they performed at the Garden so far this season, it's not been great. They actually have a negative net rating at home so far in 2022-23 because they're the Knicks. And then you've got the Trey at the Garden sort of factor if you want to add that in. The Hawks already pretty easily took care of the Knicks in New York earlier this season. I just think at plus 100 for the better team, I know they're struggling, but I'll take Atlanta.
All right, guys, that is a show. Very clean show, professional show. So we are going to wrap up now, and we are going to be back tomorrow morning in studio, 11 o'clock Eastern time. We'll be talking World Cup once again because the quarterfinals are set and they get going on Friday. So Chin may be prepared for that, please, and we'll see everyone tomorrow morning or tonight on the slate, 5 o'clock Eastern time. Let's go.